Hi, everyone, and welcome to another crew travel update right here in Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm proud to introduce Lee Harris again from Blue Marine Travel.
Hi, Ria. How you doing? You good?
All good here. All good here. Every day you wake up is a good one, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is. Yeah, that's right. They're the best days.
That's true. So the world has gone crazy at the moment. Everything is sort of changing at a second's notice. And that is partially why we do this show weekly, because things are changing so often. What is going on in the world today? Let's start with Russia.
Yeah, Russia. I'm quite mindful that we've not talked about Russian airspace and border restrictions whilst we've been doing these crew updates. And as most will know, Russia has been extremely strict with regards to their borders. Last week, however, the Russian government announced that they had agreed to weekly flights between Russia and Switzerland. This is also on top of an agreement that came into effect on the 1st of August to allow travel between Great Britain and Turkey as well. The Russian government also announced that they are in discussions with a further 30 countries on resuming flights. It is important to know that any Russian crew looking to travel back to their respective yacht will need to check entry requirements for the country they are travelling to, as there are still heavy restrictions with regards to Russian nationals and the countries they can currently enter.
And something has changed in Singapore.
Singapore, we've noticed this last few weeks is with regards to transiting in Singapore. There is a certain rules and regulations in place, so I just want to run through them so nobody else gets caught out on them. Basically, it's important to know that the current transit through Singapore, you have to be on one ticket, and it has to be in conjunction with either Singapore Airlines, Scoot, or Silk Air. Yacht crew cannot at this time transit through Singapore on any other carrier. With regards to the countries you can depart from, there is currently a list of only 21 that you can commence your journey from. This will allow you safe transit via Singapore. Some of the countries include the UK, France, Spain, Germany, Italy, Turkey, Australia, and New Zealand. But what we will do is supply the complete list of safe countries and cities to transit Singapore up in the notes at the bottom of this show. It is extremely important to know that if you have other airlines in your itinerary, either on the leg to Singapore or departing Singapore, you will be denied boarding at check-in. This is also the case if departing Singapore from one of the cities not on the agreed list as mentioned earlier.
Wow. So there is quite a list, and it's complicated, isn't it? It's not just an easy thing anymore. It is very complicated.
It is complicated, and we've spoken about it before as well, that if you go on to online booking tools and all the rest of it, it will show you itineraries and it'll give you a price and everything else. It'll let you book it. But some of these routes you can't do, and we've noticed this with Singapore as well. Say, for example, if you're flying from London to Singapore with British Airways and then onwards from Singapore to, say, Sydney with Singapore Airlines, if you got to check in, they won't board you. They won't allow you to have British Airways and Singapore Airlines on one ticket. It's got to be all within the Singapore Airlines list of airlines, which, like I said, is Singapore Airlines, Scoot, and Silk Air.
See, and I think that's wrong. I mean, if it is a fact that you cannot do those routes, they shouldn't be allowed to sell the tickets.
Exactly right. It is. It amazes us that you find these on there so much. And why would people know that? Unless you've done that route, before, during the pandemic, you're not going to know that. You're not going to think to yourself, oh, well, do I need to be on the same airline from, A to B, then B to C? You would have no reason to even look at that. So you do have to be extremely careful with, especially with transit in Singapore anyway. And one also last thing with regards to Singapore Airport, we have noticed, due to the reduced schedule of flights, we're noticing in transit people are having to transit overnight, and they're booking themselves a transit hotel. Don't book yourself a transit hotel because you won't be able to go to it. Anyone who has a connection of more than 75 minutes, you have to go into a transit holding area. That includes people who arrive at, say, 10 p.m. at night and don't go until 8 in the morning. You do have to go there. You won't be able to go off to a transit hotel. So save your money, don't book one.
That's good advice. The Philippines, what's going on there?
Again, we spoke a couple of weeks back on the show in regards to the Philippines banning domestic flights to and from Manila. The good news this week is that the restrictions have been lifted. Domestic flights in and out of Manila are now operating, albeit on a reduced schedule. Both Philippine Airlines and AirAsia are offering flights to select cities.
Well, that's good news. A little bit of opening up there. Greece.
Yeah,
New news
Greece.
out of Greece.
There is, yeah. Again, we spoke about Greece a few weeks ago with regards to you have to fill in the health locator form at least 24 hours prior to departure. They've also announced this week that anybody arriving into Greece from Bulgaria, Romania, the United Arab Emirates, Albania, Belgium, the Netherlands, Sweden, Spain, and Malta all need to provide a negative PCR test no older than 72 hours. Anybody who doesn't have that, again, will be denied boarding.
Now, Delta Airlines has just made an announcement as well in regards to what's going on with their flights worldwide.
They have, and basically, I wanted to mention it because I want to heap praise on them because they're the first airline to do it, and they seem to be taking it seriously. So Delta Airlines have raised the bar on in-flight social distancing, pledging to block the middle seat through to January next year. When a lot of airlines, especially US airlines, have been counteracting that and saying they're not going to block them. Delta Airlines have gone completely the other way. Until January next year, they're going to block the middle seats. The airline have said this is to give confidence to passengers considering travel whilst the pandemic is still ongoing. For any crew who are nervous about travelling at this time, provided your routing and costs permit, I would seriously consider Delta Airlines for your travel, as they do appear to be at the forefront of customer care.
Speaking of Delta Airlines, it's an American airline. What is going on with the States right now as far as crew traveling from, say, for example, the US to Europe, or the other way around, Europe to the US?
Yeah, so for crew from Europe to the US, it is possible to do it. As long as they've got a B1, B2 visa, they can enter into the States. We have been moving crew either transiting through the US or actually going into the US. So they're perfectly fine to go in. Coming the other way again, you can, again, it's on a country by country basis, even within Europe. I know Europe don't have US on the safe list, but what we are finding is that certain countries within Europe are allowing US citizens to enter the country, provided they have a PCR test no more than 72 hours prior to departure. But again, that's not right across the board of Europe. It is certain countries. So again, if anybody is in doubt, obviously please contact us and we can put you in the right direction.
Nice. And South Africa. South Africa has been one of the hardest countries to get in and out of in regards to crew travel. It looks like things may be loosening up a wee bit there right now.
Yeah, so it's one of our favourites on this show, isn't it, South Africa? It seems to always get a mention. It does. Thankfully, this week it has, or they've gone down to level 2 anyway, which allows them to move domestically within the country. I think this is hopefully, fingers crossed, a precursor to opening up to international travel. We've heard a few rumours that it could possibly be the end of September, beginning of October, that we see international travel up. None of it's confirmed as yet, so we are, fingers crossed, hoping that level 2 is going to go okay, which will allow them to open up international travel. But just to remind people, obviously, there are no commercial flights. You will still, again, see certain airlines offering commercial flights into South Africa and out of. Please don't book them, because they're not going to go and you'll be waiting months for your money back. It still is, at this moment in time, only repatriation flights.
Once again, it's insanity. It's just like Singapore. The fact is that these airlines know full well that they can't get into a country, or there's some restrictions in regards to certain flights, that they're still allowed to sell them.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, it makes no sense in that respect. I think a lot of the point is they have to keep their slots with regards to countries and airports and all the rest of it. So I think that may be one of the reasons why that you see these flights operate. But surely there should be a way of blocking it so that people can't actually give the airline money, full well knowing that flight in all likelihood is not going to be operating. So people do have to be careful this time. There are certain airlines that are selling seats that there's no possible way it's going to be operating.
Now, we're seeing a second wave starting to happen straight across the face of the planet. Do you think in the next few months that we're going to start seeing some more restrictions being put in place if indeed this second wave does hit hard?
I think it's probably going to be inevitable if we do see the second wave. You're seeing in Europe that certain places are, struggle to get to terms with it as soon as they've opened up their airspace. I'm hoping that the governments can find a way instead of completely locking down airspace, that they can come to some sort of a way, with, if it's the 14-day quarantine or the PCR testing before departure and when you arrive, at your arrival airport. There's got to be some new way of doing it other than just saying, right, we're going to lock everything down for 3 to 4 months, because at the end of the day, that's not worked either. All you're doing is just delaying the inevitable that's going to happen anyway. As soon as you open up, I saw this week that the World Health Organization was saying they expect the pandemic to last for 2 years. You can't lock people down for that long. People need to travel. It's part and parcel of life nowadays. It's not like back in Spanish flu or whenever, when people didn't have access to this. We need this to survive economically, socially. We need it as well. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, they are going to find a way to make sure that we don't have to go in complete lockdown and shut everything down once again.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said economically, because you're seeing many, many countries talking about businesses that are consistently going bust as a result of tourism. Tourism, especially during the summertime, is a huge thing straight across the face of the planet. And these businesses survive on that 6 to 8 months out of the year is when they make their money, and then they have to save for the winter months when there is no tourism. And there are countries that are severely suffering, and the amount of homelessness, the amount of hungry, etc., is just rising through the roof. So, I guess there comes a point in time where you try to balance this out. Are we more worried about the people that are dying from the fact that they're exposed to the elements and don't have food, or are we more worried about them catching this virus? It's really difficult.
I think it is, isn't it? That's the whole point. At some point you have to look or project the figures of, like you say, the homelessness, the food not being on the table, just the amount of companies that are going to go bust. That if you don't open things up again, what are the effects going to be long term for that, and on people's health and all the rest of it? Because we are so, by nature, people are sociable. You can't shut people down. It's just not viable to do it for such a long period of time. And so you do have to look at different ways to control the pandemic, other than just saying, right, that's it, we're going to lock everything down and that's it, and we'll tell you when you can go about your days again. Because people aren't, that's not going to sit right with people for too long. We've seen here in New Zealand that Auckland went back to level 3, and you're seeing people on social media and all the rest of it, they're not happy about it, they don't want it, and they're saying that you need to let us out, you need to let us do stuff, you need to let us get back to work again, because some of these companies have only been reopened for, 5-6 weeks from the last lockdown, and then they're put back there again. So at what point do you say, okay, maybe this isn't the right process to go through anymore, let's look at something else that will give people a little bit of freedom and social responsibility as well to do the right thing?
Well, and you have to look at the costs associated as well, because in order to gear up to go back to work, there's a cost associated, and in order to close down, there's a cost associated. So to be opening up for 5 or 6 weeks, those costs just don't make any sense.
No, not at all. No.
Well, hopefully we're seeing a change across the face of the planet, and I keep saying the face of the planet, but really, this is unprecedented, and it is the entire world that is being affected. And it is what it is, I guess. Hopefully we'll see in the next few months that things start getting back to our new normal, which is another expression that I hate to say, but is reality right now.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, it does seem to be the new phrase of choice for the new normal, isn't it? But that is exactly what it is. You think back a year ago, you couldn't even in your wildest dreams have possibly imagined that this is what 2020 was going to be like. So all we can do is, like you say, hope and pray that 2, 3, 4 months down the line that we've got to grips with it somehow, and we can get back to living a normal life once more.
Well, fingers crossed and all that, right? Lee, thank you ever so much. It is always great to hear from you every week, because as we keep saying, the world is changing, and crew are still trying to get to and from work. And it's really, really important to have these updates. So we thank you again for your time.
No problem at all. I did actually just want to say as well, one other thing, that if any crew who are listening have any specific queries or questions, then please feel free to email us on the show. We can hopefully provide guidance next week. There is an email address. It is crewtravelupdates@gmail.com. That's crewtravelupdates@gmail.com. So if there is any crew out there who are slightly undecided or not sure what they can do, email it into us. Maybe that's something that we can discuss next week.
Wonderful. Yeah, great idea, because that way you can address specific concerns, because I'm sure you see on social media right now, there's a ton of people that are asking different questions in regards to travel.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, hopefully this is a platform that we can use just to, like I say, any crew who have got specific requirements or whatever, get in touch, and then we can see what we can do for you.
Excellent. Thanks again, Lee. That has been Lee Harris from Blue Marine Travel with your weekly travel update right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I've been your host. Please tune in again next week.